Oh, brother, this guy stinks. Today, we're talking the 10 biggest busts of the fantasy baseball season on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, here as always with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, and if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things, once again, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify, that allows for those 5-star ratings and reviews. We would truly appreciate it if you do that for us as well. And listen, guys, as we head into the offseason, you're going to want to join Matt and I on the Insiders track. We're going to be talking Dynasty, Keepers. We're going to do some fun stuff. Matt and I are going to be working on our 2026 rankings because we're degenerates. We're going to have those out there for you at some point. So join us on the Insiders track. Wherever you're listening or watching, you'll be able to find that link. So, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download it today. And all right, first of all, shout out to anyone that caught my SpongeBob reference at the beginning. Shout out to you, because if you caught that reference, you're my kind of people. And listen, we're getting into a little bit of off season. I know, there's a couple days left in the season here, but Matt brought you guys home with those must-add players. Matt did his thing for you guys, in that last little segment there. So Matt, shout out to you for that, for the fans and everybody on that one. But today we're focusing on some more of postseason stuff. We're going to talk about. Yeah, Matt did it pretty well right there. We're talking about some guys that, weren't really great this year. 10 of the biggest busts from the fantasy baseball season. And Matt, I've done a lot of talking already, so why don't you take it from here, my brother?
All right, no doubt. So let me preface this, dude. Not everybody is just like a super bust. We're like, oh my God, we're going to be kind of hating on them for 2026. It's just, hey, like, this is their ADP. This is how they finished. And essentially, how did that correlate in terms of ROP, which is, if you're new to this show, return on draft pick, right? You look at it from a business standpoint, return on investment. It's the same thing. You're investing in a player. They're going to help you win a team. So essentially, this is how we're going to judge this, whether they were bust or not. And we're going to start off with Jared Duran. Jared Duran was where is my notes here? The pick number. Here we go. Pick number 22nd off the board based off of ADP by the end of draft season, and the 10th overall outfielder drafted, which is not good when you do a performance as Jared Duran did. Jared Duran this season, if my page will ever load, here we go, performed at a rate of 608 at-bats, 85 runs, 39 doubles, 13 triples, 16 bombs, 82 ribs, 24 stolen bases, and batted .257. So there's some positives, there's some negatives, and I'm going to get into it right now. Well, the positive is, if you draft them in points leagues, you're probably not that disappointed. And head-to-head roto itself, a little bit more on the disappointing side. Other than that, you actually probably made out pretty good, minus the fact that he struck out like an animal, but that's pretty much him every year. But he usually comes with a batting average of at least 285 between the last 2 years previous, between 23 and 24, where he batted 295 and 285. And even in the minors, he was known for batting average. Now, this year hit 257, pretty ugly. The power definitely took a dip, something that I was kind of scared of, where, 16 home runs versus cracking the 20, which, hey, you're going to say it was 4 home runs, but that is a huge difference, in all honesty, when you're drafting a player as the 10th outfielder off the board. Him to be at least a 2020 guy is something that is part of the reason why he was drafted as a 10th outfielder overall. Then you look at, okay, cool, the runs are down. Even though Boston, started getting really good as they went on in the season, they started off super cold. Jared Duran as a whole was driven in like nothing at all, and a lot of his production came closer to when Roman Anthony and the young guys started going off. Then the production really started coming in. Rabies are mediocre when, we expected the team to be a lot better, but we'll get into that. And then quite honestly, I look at him as a whole and I go, well, how more disappointing can we possibly get? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it gets even worse. For a guy that you look at and you just go, what was his biggest obstacle this year? Well, didn't cause enough fly balls because that was only 39% of the time throughout the whole year. He produced ground balls 41.7%. So, I mean, quite honestly, it's like a quite even split. And then the other half is just so ugly. He just struck out or walked, and it's just not great. Um, the hard contact actually still is pretty decent. And he barreled at an okay rate at 9.7%. But ultimately, you look at Jared Duran as a whole, and he's a bust in terms of your return on investment. And I'm sorry for this long winded take. But ultimately, I'm looking at Jared Duran like this. Am I scared of him for next year? Absolutely not. Is he going to take a ding because the power might be dipping a little bit? Absolutely. Did he bust for you this year? Yes. But am I scared to draft him next year? No, I'm just not drafting him as a top 10 outfielder. I'm going to draft him probably more as a top 12 to top 14. I don't think he gets that much of a ding, and 4 home runs can be easily made up on a team that I think is going to have some positive regression next year. So Jared Duran as a whole, bust for 2025, 2026. I'm not out on at all.
Yeah, man, that's a great take on Duran. I think if the price is right, definitely going to be in on him next year as well. And it's really it was about where you drafted him versus where he ended up. As Matt said, he was taken as the 10th outfielder around pick 22 at the end of draft season. This year, I know there's like a few games left, but he's the 23rd outfielder right now in Roto. That would equate to around like the 70th pick. So you're talking about like a 6th round pick, 5th round pick, depending on the league size. And that's just not doing it. That's a 2nd versus the 6th round pick. That's, 4-round difference in value right there. So with a guy like Duran, he had the big breakout year last year with the 111 runs. He had the 21 bombs, 75 RBIs, 34 steals, 285 batting average, 10 less steals. Batting average, as Matt talked about, took a huge dip. Power took a dip. Runs dropped a lot too. So with that performance, Matt, great breakdown on Duran. Definitely was a bust for this season. Let's move on to this next guy, though. Let's talk about another, outfielder, Oneil Cruz. Another even bigger bust. Yeah, I want to go ahead and say then what Jared Duran was, because the thing with Oneil Cruz was he actually started off the year pretty hot. The steals were plentiful, dealt with a little bit of injury, but still had enough at bats at 467 on the season that I felt like he was, worth talking about as a bust. On the season total, it was 62 runs, 20 bombs, 61 runs, 38 RBIs. 38 steals, and a 201 batting average for Oneil Cruz. And he's been being platooned down the stretch here. He's not even playing every day anymore. It's really been somebody that you had to make a high investment on, and they literally are not there when you need the most in the playoffs. So Oneil Cruz was taken as the 14th outfielder. That's around pick 42. And he did not even finish top? He was right inside the top 50 outfielders as outfielder number 46. So once again, that's a huge difference. That's 30 outfield positions. And when you're talking about you're talking about pick 168 for the 46th outfielder. So that's almost pick 200. That's just horrible value. I know the steals weren't bad, not a bad steal season at all, but 60 and 60 in the counting stats is not getting it done. The 20 home runs for a guy who's gigantic, has way more power than this, and the 201 batting average literally killed you. So Oneil Cruz, honestly, I might be interested in him next year, but we're going to have to get way better value. The value is going to have to be way, way better. If he's I want to say outfielder, if I get him as my outfielder 3, maybe a utility bat, maybe I'm thinking about it then, especially if I need speed at that point in time. But otherwise, with a guy like Oneil Cruz, man, he had a bad year. He had a bad year, bad investment this season. Matt, I think you're muted.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it real quick. Honestly, with Oneil Cruz, the fact that he strikes out 32% of the time and, can't make up with it with his play discipline and draw more walks, even though he walks actually at a pretty decent rate at 11.9%. Still just not great enough. He needs to make more contact with the ball. And that's the biggest issue with O'Neal Cruz. Otherwise, we would be talking a different story. His underlying stats when he does make contact actually is phenomenal. Average exit velocity sitting at 95.8 miles an hour. He barrels 18.1% of the time, which is absolutely elite. And the hard contact is 56.5% of the ball. Problem is the dude is just chasing and not making contact with the ball at the end of the day. And therefore, we're not seeing the results out on the stat lines or on the field. So O'Neal Cruz still has a boatload of upside, but I think he might start falling into the Michael Harris category where I just don't want a piece of him because he can't put the bat to the ball, even though all the underlying stats say he probably should. But coming up next, we got guys like Brian Reynolds, Marcelo Ozuna, and Mark Vientos, and how they're super disappointing and what their possible outlook could be in 2026. And all right, guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, or maybe even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugit Ready. Rugit Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugit is 3-in-1 formula. Dissolves under your tongue. It kicks in fast, on average in about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugit might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I love it. It's completely online. Rugit connects you with a board-certified doctor, and if you're prescribed for the treatment, it ships directly to your door discreetly. You can even read real customer reviews right on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugit.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code LockedOnMLB to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code LockedOnMLB for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatments. Compound drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing reviews. Please visit Rugit website for full safety information. And hey, listen, it's the off season now, and it's time to lock in for 2026. Dom and I are going to be coming at you with all our off season stuff, and the only place to get it is on the Insider Track. We're going to get the Insider Track on how to win your league all off season long, from draft process all the way to the season ending. Don't miss out. Links in the description below. But without further ado, Dom, please take over because I did not put this next.
I got you, brother. And it's another Pittsburgh Pirate outfielder. It's Bryan Reynolds. And I'll be honest with you, I was close to ADP on Duran, and, I liked O'Neal Cruz too a little bit. But this is one. But this is one guy I was definitely calling out for, a little bit of a bust. Bryan Reynolds, a mediocre season, man. I will say the team context is really bad too over there in Pittsburgh. But 150 games played for Reynolds, 572 at bats, 67 runs, 37 doubles, 3 triples, 16 bombs, 73 RBIs, 3 steals, and a 243 batting average. Now, Bryan Reynolds was supposed to be like the pillar of consistency, mid 20 homers every year, almost 90 RBIs, 260 plus batting average. He was, like I said, just bad, didn't meet any of the criteria we thought he was going to meet. He was being taken as the 27th outfielder that was good for around pick 86. He is currently sitting as the 65th outfielder right now. And on draft day, the 65th outfielder cost you the 247th pick. So that's almost a 200 pick difference, at least 150 picks difference in Bryan Reynolds' value and the way that we drafted him versus the way he performed. So just by definition, that is a gigantic bust for Mr. Bryan Reynolds. Honestly, next year, he's going to be 31 years old, and I don't think this Pittsburgh team is going to be too much better. They do have some young prospects next year, but I don't think they're going to get called at the beginning of the year or make the team or have enough impact for guys like Cruz and Reynolds to really turn their fantasy value around next season. So I'll probably be avoiding Reynolds for 2026 as well.
Fair points. Brian Reynolds is a guy that I honestly thought would have been a safety valve in 2025 and essentially did the exact opposite and obliterated your team. And that's the key part where you just got to sit back and go, okay, let's reassess it, even though he's been actually a picture of consistency for the last like 3 years. So with Brian Reynolds, I'm just like this. Hey, he's going to take a knock. I'd still draft him in like a 4 or 5 outfield, league as a starter, but I'm not going to touch him with a 10-foot pole in those 3 outfield leagues or anything where I'm considering him as a UT at that point until, see where the draft line goes and cost. But great take, Dom. Let's move on. Let's talk about Marcelo Ozuna of the Atlanta Braves, and another outfielder here, and he's pretty disappointing. He was drafted to be the outfielder 14, ADP at pick 42 overall. Obviously, did not come even close to that season finish. Where he actually ended up finishing was significantly worse. So Marcelo Ozuna finished as the 332nd player overall in 5x5 categories, which is like the outfielder 500. I'm kidding, but ultimately might as well be, especially for the not even the market to absolutely crash. It decided to walk itself off a bridge, slit its throat on the way down, and then decide, oh, cool, there's a timeout mechanism. We're going to blow up the whole damn world with it, because Marcelo Ozuna absolutely sucked this year, flat out. You look at him as a whole and you go, okay, why did I even draft him? He had 477 at bats, 61 runs, 19 doubles, 21 home runs, 67 ribs, and then to boot, the dude had the gall to strike out 141 times and only walk 94% of the 94 walks. That is ugly batting 233. Absolutely destroyed you this year. There was no bright spot except for an average OPS. Nothing else really screamed, hey, there's some positive regression. Even look at the underlying stats, and that really wasn't great either. The expecting average was a smidge better at 250, but the power wasn't showing. The average exit velocity was only sitting at 89 miles an hour. He had an average exit velocity last year at 92.1 miles an hour. And then on top of that, you look at how hard he hit the ball this year, how often at least, 44.6% of the time. When you look at the previous year, 53.4%. He's nearly down 10%. Everything about his game showed serious negative regression, and him being in his age 34 season, I'm like this. I'm hard. It's hard for me to even have it come out of my mouth, but I think we might be seeing the downward turn of Ozuna as a whole. Bat speed this year was 72.9%, which you look at from comparison to last year, and it was up at 74%. So it's down to 2.5% right there. I'm looking at Marcelo Ozuna, and I think we're going to see a serious, what's the word I'm looking for? Negative regression in those regards, unless he decides to take the Profar / somebody else I said the other day that I'm suspecting of the same route, to have a bounce back in their career. Ultimately, I don't foresee Ozuna being anything of effective in 2025. I'm going to completely avoid him unless I start seeing him taking classes at Driveline in the offseason, which we know he's not going to do.
Yeah, Matt, I'm with you. Even though Ozuna was my boy, I have to say, out of everyone that we talked about so far, is the highest on Ozuna. It's the age. I don't really think there's anything else to say. Age 34 season, Father Time finally caught up. I'll be out on him next year too. There's no way. I mean, maybe if he's like the last pick of your draft, I'm sure you'll be able to get him there. I don't think he's going to be highly drafted at all. Maybe you throw the dart there if he looks good in spring training.
I don't know about last pick. I'd still take him probably as my first bench bat, if I'm being honest. My whole thing is
I can see it.
I'm not mad at him as my first bet, because then you're taking the upside play.
I kind of want to see what Atlanta's going to do with him. I have to check because I haven't had him on my team in a while. But I know he was getting platooned as well. He wasn't playing every single day. So I kind of want to see how the playing time's looking. Kind of want to see where Atlanta's at with him and how he looks in spring training. Because at 34, 35 next year, it's going to be tough for the guy like Ozuna. But let's move on to this next guy. Let's talk about Mark Vientos. And I think he was kind of like one of the fantasy baseball analysts, like darling. And I believe, Matt, you were with me, and Matt and I just weren't buying it. We weren't really too in on Vientos like everybody else was. Vientos was being drafted as the 8th third baseman overall, and that was good for pick 89. Do you know where Vientos is right now? This is shocking to me. The 40th third baseman That's where he's sitting at right now. Numbers on the year for Vientos, 417 at-bats, 44 runs, 17 bombs, 60 RBIs, 235 batting average. Just a very disappointing year for Vientos. He had a stellar postseason, coming into this year, and everybody was really hype on him, and he just didn't figure it out. I know he's had more power here in the second half, especially from August on. That power stroke has been heating up. And I might be buying back in on him next season because, the age is still there. He's only 25 this year, going to be 26 next season. So, with a guy like Vientos who's still fairly young, and if the price is right, I could see buying back in. But just on the hype alone on where we had to, draft him was inside the top 100. And if you want to talk about where the 40th third baseman was drafted, Matt, listen to this. 364, crazy for Vientos, absolute bust. But coming up next, we're going to be talking about some starting pitchers like Dylan Cease, Aaron Nola, what happened to them this year, those names and more coming up next. And all right, guys, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I personally love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even just jumping in live as the action unfolds, it makes every game more exciting. Whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup, it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? If so, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. And once again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet today. And all right, guys, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about some pitching. And this one's interesting. Let's talk some Dylan Cease.
Whoa.
Go ahead, brother.
Take the whole show.
You had him queued up. I'm sorry, brother. Let's go for it. I figured I would own up because I was a little bit of a Dylan Cease guy. But if you got the haterade ready, brother, go for it.
I'm just saying I didn't even get to talk about Mr. Vientos, but
did you? Oh man, I'm losing it, brother. I'm losing my mind over here. Go on ahead. Excuse me over here.
It's okay. Don't let it happen again. And you could take Cease. It's okay. Look, all I want to say is Vientos sucks. And that I don't even have to give a fantasy baseball take on him. The dude just didn't look like the guy that we expected to. The power didn't shine through. It came in spurts, and that was really about it. He was a great streaming option all year long, but a guy that was not consistent at all. But Dom, since you're already premature articulated, go ahead and take over.
Yeah, this one, Matt, and I was going to give you credit here too, because I think you're legitimately maybe the only one of the fantasy baseball analysts that really was like calling for a Cease. Not only at ADP you were calling, you were just saying he was a bust in general. And I think we're going to do a bold prediction review episode at some point. And if I recall correctly, there was a very strong bold prediction by Matt that came true. So we're gonna stumble back on those bold predictions on those. But Matt, good call on Cease. Cease was taken as the 10th starting pitcher this year. That was pick 42 overall. And boy, oh boy, did he not live up to any hype at all, except some strikeouts. 168 innings for Cease, 8 wins, 215 strikeouts, a 4.55 whip, 4.55 ERA, and a 1.33 whip. Man, it was tough. It was just a really tough season as a Dylan Cease owner. You got some strikeouts, but you were sitting there all season just hoping for more that never came through. I'll say this. I wouldn't be mad at taking him again in 2026 if you get him as like SP6, maybe 7, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So I'll probably be out on Cease for next year. And then you know what? He might have a monster season, but it's just I can't do the in and out every other year thing. I feel like I kind of either got to be in or out, and I know I'm going from being in to being out, but I wasn't really taking him at ADP either. I have to look back at my rankings. I know for a fact I did not have him at 10. I want to say I had him closer to 20, but still, I had him inside the top 20 for sure.
You had him inside your top 12.
I don't know about that. I'll pull up my rankings as you're talking. I'll check where I had him. But I know I had him inside my top 20. I wasn't a huge Cease guy, but I thought there was definitely value there. Had a great season last year, but he's just been so unreliable his whole career. A 3.88 ERA on his whole career. That's almost 200 starts and over 1,000 innings. So we kind of know who he is. Big strikeouts, high ERA. And the whip on his career is a 1.26. So the story's out there on a 29-year-old Dylan Cease at this point. But Matt, if you got the haterade and you want to cue it up, go ahead, my brother.
I do. So for starters, you did have him in your top 12. Anyway, it's all good. I had Luis Robert in my top 12 to start off the offseason as an outfielder. So it is what it is. Like, we all make mistakes. But look, Dylan Cease is one of those guys that he's a pure strikeout guy, right? He strikes out a lot of guys because he does it 29.8% of the time. But ultimately, he also does not have success at the mound because he walks guys at 9.8%. That is incredibly high and incredibly sets you up for the worst success possible. He's also a guy that doesn't produce a lot of ground balls that would also give him safety measures when he gets himself in trouble. And the fact that he has a left on base percentage of 69%, which is honestly about around league average in total on the season, which means he doesn't get himself when he gets himself out of trouble, means that he does have blow up games, even though his FIP and his XFIP say, hey, he should probably be having a way better ERA sitting at 350 apiece. Now, that's all great and dandy, but a guy that just gives up home runs, loves to give up fly balls, because home runs and fly balls at 11.9% is a mixture and a culmination that I don't want a part of. Now, even though the FIP says he's gotten unlucky, I still don't feel that he is all that great as a SP2, SP3, SP4 range is where he should have been going, where I had him. That would have been a great spot. You could take the dud games at that point, but you pretty much banked your whole season on Dylan Cease, and you can't do that again. He's always going to be this insanely high strikeout guy, but nothing else. But let's move on. I digress from destroying that guy's life. Let's talk about Aaron Nola of the Philadelphia Phillies, starting pitcher. Now, Aaron Nola dealt with some injuries, but ultimately the negative regression started last year, right? Even though he finished with great numbers on the season, we saw a little bit of a dip, right? Like, he did pitch 199 innings last year. He had 197 strikeouts, a 3.57 ERA. But the FIP was sitting at 3.94. And Aaron Nola is also notorious for having that one or two innings that absolutely implode his ERA on the week. I think this year it finally caught up with him. In all honesty, it did. The injury made no difference. The dude finished with a 6.46 ERA on the season through 86 innings. And that's a large enough sample size to say that is legitimate. And even though his FIP is sitting at 477, it's still not great. Everything about his season, everything about leading up to the injury, after the injury, there's no get right. I don't even think he's going to be worth the Phillies even rolling him out there in the playoffs. It just screams bad performance. And he's out of top 24 consideration for me this year going into 2026. Everything about it is ugly. He did keep his strike percentage down to a right point, and he's only a little bit hair under league average at 7.4% walk rate, which is a good culmination to keep things going. But the Sierra is nowhere where it used to be. The home run fly ball ratio has gone up out to wazoo, 18.5%. He's not doing as many ground balls. It's only 41.8%. And quite honestly, in Citizens Bank Park, you have to have that to follow up to, compensate for the short porch. And he doesn't get himself out of trouble this year at all. To finish the season, his left on base percentage was 61.8%. That means he literally, that one or two innings was like a whole game for him. He just got himself in trouble and could not get himself out. And that's why we saw a 6 and change ERA. There is some positive regression coming in that, but that positive regression is probably a mid-4 ERA. Aaron Nola, washed.
Yeah, man, I think that's a good call on Nola. And you had a great breakdown. We're running short on time, so I think I'm just going to move on to this next guy. We're going to move on to the number 2 closer that was drafted coming into the year, and that was Devin Williams. And it's funny because I'm going to mention the number 1 closer too. I'm going to mention Emmanuel Class A, and we all know what happened with him. We don't really do too much, that kind of talk around here.
It's so classy.
Yeah, he's not so classy. Well, Matt, perfect way to say that. Not so classy for Class A. So, this is why Matt and I's strategy is never to take closers early. We always preach that. We tell you guys not to do that. And the number 1 and 2 closer this year were absolutely abysmal. But we're focusing on Williams here, who was had to be taken at pick 60 pick 60 overall. And man, I just feel bad for you if you did that at this point, because Devin Williams, really, really bad season over here in New York. And I'm going to read you those numbers. It was 60 innings on the season. He did have 3 wins and 18 saves with 88 strikeouts, but he had a 4.95 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP. And man, it was just a tough go of it here for Devin Williams. And as I talked about with some of the guys earlier, Devin Williams was not there when you needed him most, and it really, really hurt. But once again, I'm running short on time, but I kind of do want to mention 2 of the other biggest busts of the fantasy baseball season in 2025. Tanner Bybee comes in on this list as well. He had to be taken in the top 30 starting pitchers, and he didn't even get close to that. He had 182 innings pitched, 12 wins, 164 strikeouts, a 4.24 ERA, and a 1.23 WHIP. I still like Tanner Bybee. He has actually been really great in his last 3 starts. So if you did hang on or you picked him up when he was dropped, he actually helped you down the stretch here. And let's get on to the last name. It's Kodai Senga. I know he was drafted a little bit later, but, there was a lot of hope for Senga, like thinking that he could have a lot of upside. So I know a lot of us fantasy baseball players may have waited on starting pitching and took in Senga as our SP3 and just was hoping that he had some upside, but he was literally sent down to the minors to work on things. He had been so bad. So he hasn't even pitched since August 31st in the bigs, and his last 3 starts in the big. So pretty much his down the stretch in August was horrible for Senga. Wasn't there when we needed him the most, and just didn't return on ADP. And that's what it really is when we're talking about bust. So guys, those were the biggest busts for Matt and I of the 2025 fantasy baseball season. So thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all new Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, or listen to your podcast. But shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. So guys, until next time, so ya.